Welcome back to another training with John, your performance mindset coach. So today I'm going to share with you one of the trainings from our UnstoppableU Coaching Program for business owners, but I want to specifically focus on how we can increase our efficiency and decrease stress for business owners. So if you read our blog last week, we dived into the topic of how business owners have to deal with high volumes of stress on a daily basis. And what we'd have to do as the business owner is increase our capacity to do that, but also increase our efficiency so we can now get back more time to actually be able to delegate it to stuff that's more important. So we're really going to dive into the topic of time management and what we can do to make sure that every single week we have a plan to execute. And that's not just with our business, but I like to call it a life business integration system, or a life management system. All right. So a way for you to manage and integrate your business with your personal life to make sure that you are able to show up as your best self and be the most efficient version of you possible, and make sure that you're managing your stress levels by decreasing your neural threat. So what's the objective? Well, it's to provide you with a system and framework for maximizing your time and energy as a business owner. It's one of the biggest challenges, and you think of the assets that a business owner has, we will think of time, energy, and money, right? And as the business grows and progresses, that's when you can start to use more of your money asset to buy back some time and energy. But for a lot of people who are in the beginning phases or in the early phases of their growth, know how important it is to manage cash flow, right? So sometimes we are using more of our time and energy in spaces maybe that we're not best served. But while we're still in that frame, we have to be able to proactively manage our week to make sure that we're executing on all the things we need to make sure that our relationships are still healthy, to make sure that we're healthy and we're doing the stuff that we need to do to ascend ourselves to our best self. Because as we ascend, so does our business, right? So we need to be able to integrate all of this together into one plan. So what are some of the problems that I personally see from the business owners that I've worked with or have discussions with, right? So number one is they have no plan. They go into the week and go off the cuff. Now, in the beginning phases, just like myself, when I started my coaching business, you can get away with having no plan. You can get away with not tracking things properly. You can get away with not having a clear intention of what you're waking up to execute on every day. But as you progress and as the numbers increase and as the challenges increase, now it's time that we have to have the proper plans in place to make it easy for ourselves. Or else they've got a shitty plan. Sometimes they've got a plan that's just not what they need in terms of getting the outcome that they want to get. There's too much stuff involved, or there's not enough of what's important. Finally, then, too many parts plan, right? So what I mean by too many moving parts plan is they're trying to accomplish 20 different things at one time, making it impossible for them to actually be efficient and effective. What they're actually doing is they're increasing their own neural threat because they're trying to basically adopt so much things at one time, wear so many different hats, and their brains can't cope with it. And which sends us into this, what we call amygdala hijack, which essentially you cannot think logically when you're in that state. We're set ourselves up to fail. When we have no plan, a shitty plan, or we have too many moving parts, we set ourselves up to fail, right? We set ourselves up to feel like we haven't won the day. We set ourselves up to feel like we're not gaining momentum and our wheels are spinning. Like I shared earlier, it's also increasing our neural threat, which in turn is decreasing our ability to be able to think logically and use the logical frontal lobe part of our brain. Lack of predictability. We don't give our brain the predictability it needs in order to execute on what it needs to execute on. So what do we want to do to change this and be proactive in our approach? Well, we want to have a clear plan of action, right? We need to have a clear plan of action on what am I waking up to execute on a daily basis. So for me as a coach, like, what am I waking up to execute on a daily basis? What's my target? What's my objective? What's my vision? And what do I need to do today that helps me get there? Now, if I don't have a weekly plan distilled, it's very difficult for you to now put together a daily plan, because your daily plan should reflect what your weekly targets were. Tracked with closed loops, right? So we want to track our intentions, track our plans. We call them ascension movers. And what that does is as we track it, we close the loop if we completed the task. If we didn't complete it, we move it on to the next day. And at the end of the week, then we look back and we go into reflective mindset, where now we're looking at what worked, what did I learn, what didn't work. And that's where we have to have the honest conversation of, okay, I noticed that this was on my list each day, but I didn't get it accomplished. Why is that? Did I not show up as my best capacity? Is there too many moving parts? Am I taking on too much? Do I need someone to help me with this? Is there a narrative or a mindset issue around this? And then we can actually fix the problem. So let's move on to ascension movers. What are my 20-80 tasks? What I mean by that, what is the 20% of things that gets me 80% of my results, right? You've all heard of the Pareto's law. What is the 20% of what I do that gets me 80% of my results? In what order and when, right? So we should know priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, priority 4. Now, I want you to think about this not just from a business perspective, but also your life, right? So for your health, your exercise, what are your ascension movers? For your relationships, what are your ascension movers? And then what we want to do at the end of the day is we count our ascension wins, meaning now we count our wins towards the intentions or the movers that we had on a Sunday and that we had on a morning, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning for that day. So we're opening the loop. This is what we want to accomplish, creating the predictability that our brain craves. Then we're closing the loop, which we'll touch on in a minute. So here's your ascension movers. Here's the worksheet. If you want a copy of the worksheet, you can find it below in the comments. So just comment worksheet, or I will make sure it gets sent over to you. You should see a link there. What are my 3 to 6 ascension movers that will yield me the biggest results? All right, so what are my 3 to 6 things that are going to yield me the biggest results this week? Closed loops, ascension wins, mindset tracking, adaptation, and plan. All right, so ascension wins means now we're looking for the wins at the end of the day. What do we accomplish towards our goals? Mindset tracking, meaning what's the sort of feelings, thoughts, behavioral patterns that came up for me today that are serving and non-serving. And finally then adapting and planning, okay, for the next week. So at the end of the week, we adapt and we plan based off of last week's results, based off of last week's findings. All right, so ascension wins. What are my daily wins for each ascension mover? So we had our different ascension movers here. Now we're going to create our ascension wins based off of that. A couple of reminders before we finish. You control your brain. Don't let your brain control you, all right? We have to create the predictability, and then we give our brain the clear instructions on how we want it to execute, in what order, and we do that over time with repetition, which is what we do a lot of inside of Ascension U. Reduce the neuro threat, right? If you're in a state of neuro threat and amygdala hijack, it's impossible for you to think logically, and you're going to be always operating out of your emotional part of the brain, your back brain, which is going to lead to poor decision making, poor leadership, disagreements at home with your wife, not finding the time for your partners because you're not going to be able to think logically. And finally, life business integration, right? The importance of integrating our life and business so we can find that plan that works for us, where we feel like we can manage the entirety of our life, business, health, relationships, whatever else needs to be in there, your leadership capacity, your self-development, all into one system. All right, so I hope you found this training valuable. If you did, copy or just comment valuable below. If you want to copy the worksheets and you cannot find the link, you should see it below this post. If not, just comment hit me or worksheets, and I'll make sure to get you a comment or get you a copy of the worksheet sent over to go along with this training. All right, so until the next time, be well, take care, and talk soon.